Whenever you're ready.
You're doing this one, you said.
That's right. Whenever I'm ready. It'd be a good one to keep for the other wheel. Excellent. Didn't even do that on purpose. Jeez.
It's a good start.
Yeah, it is. So,
I like where we're at.
yeah, we're on a roll.
We've been doing this for almost 10 years.
One of these days.
This is the level of professionalism that you
That's
get from
right.
people who are as seasoned as we are.
Yep. I think I'm going to keep most of this and say, welcome to Squat Cobbler, believe it or not. We're back again for our third Halloween special where we kind of covered, we did this last year. We talked about some games that are just perfect for Halloween. And when you think about high end gaming experiences in the retro world, where else can you go than the Atari 2600? But before we begin, hi, I'm Kelly. It's KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram.
I am Dr. Mike at Official Pagan on everything. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, turn on notifications, buy a t-shirt, whatever it is that you need to do to show us that you're loyal fans, to show your friends and family that you love them by providing them with t-shirts as gifts. Make sure you guys do all of that stuff. It's homework. It's required.
Right. No supply issues. You're going to get them for Christmas. So just start ordering away now just to make sure.
That's right. Just like the Principality of Sealand, we are not affected by this pandemic.
Exactly like that. But we're here as long as my audio holds out. Having some problems with that today, folks. Sorry. But we're here to talk about the Halloween franchise, a Halloween special. See, I'm saying the word Halloween effortlessly. There have been, we'll see.
Doesn't
And
always
it
happen that way.
doesn't always happen. In the future, folks, there's going to be a show coming up where you'll see why. This is actually pretty impressive that I've rolled it out twice without any difficulty. But the Halloween special or the Halloween movie, the whole series, fantastic stuff around this part of the season. And again, as I mentioned, when you want to talk about that high end retro gaming experience, got to roll back to that. Fine, Atari. No, I can't say Atari. Atari 2600.
You've already switched to Atari tokens as your primary form
I
of
know, and I
currency.
can't even. I get nervous. Just the market. Um, their version of Halloween. So that's what we're talking about tonight.
Yes.
Mike, your overall impressions of this fine game.
Um so it's actually it's an important game in the sense that so again, it's Atari 2600. So don't expect this isn't Resident Evil. This isn't, what you've come to expect from survival horror type games and things like that. It's what you come to expect from Atari 2600. You can kind of make out that they're people and what's going on. But this was an impressive thing. Horror games, particularly more graphic horror games, were not a common thing at the time when this was made. And as you can kind of see over Kelly's shoulder there, that's a decapitated body with blood spurting out of the neck stump. That was definitely not a thing that was happening in video games at that time. So this game was a big deal. This and its sort of sister game, which was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, also for Atari 2600, both published by our good friends at Wizard. um, I say good friends because Wizard they changed their name to Empire and eventually to Full Moon, who I made Evil Bong for.
There you go.
So this is the same people I've worked for. They created this super high end production. Many of the cartridges, if you were lucky enough to come upon one of these, have a piece of tape on them with the word Halloween handwritten on it instead of a label on the cartridge. That's not, if you come across that, that's not just somebody damaged their cartridge and did that. That's how they shipped.
Yeah,
So
but they did use an orange marker,
yeah,
so
so
so it
it was in
fit.
the spirit.
Yeah, yeah. A unique game in that I don't remember many Atari 2600 games that did feature blood. This one does. We get decapitations. That's the way you go out. You also get, this is a babysitter, and she's babysitting children. And when the killer, we'll talk more about that in a second, but when the killer takes out, not only can the killer take you out as the babysitter, he can take out the children as well, and they bleed as well. So it's pretty grim for Atari for any standard, but particularly Atari standard.
Yeah, and so especially early in the Halloween franchise, Michael Myers, I don't want to say actively doesn't kill kids, but it doesn't kill kids. Like I don't think it's something that they ever addressed, but he doesn't kill kids. And that for me was kind of a little bit of a letdown in the 2018 Halloween movie. It's important to say the dates after them because 3 of the movies in the franchise are just called Halloween because they hate your memory.
That's right.
So they've been trying to confuse their fans since the beginning. I don't know, Kelly, are you a big Halloween franchise guy?
Middle of the road on it. I mean,
Okay.
I enjoy it. I don't dislike it by any stretch of the imagination. Uh, it's one of those ones that nothing, in my opinion, nothing has ever risen to the majesty of the first. Really, the original Halloween was outstanding on multiple fronts, and really, to a large degree, was the thing that kickstarted a lot of the horror movie craze during the '90s. So props to them for that. But I like the franchise, and I'll certainly catch them where I can or stream them where I can. But big fan of the first one, and then the rest I don't dislike, but I don't anxiously await opportunities to review them. How about you?
So big, I'm a big fan of the franchise. I always kind of make fun of it. And everybody, there's multiple videos you can go and find this. And it's funny because I was watching earlier today with the person I live with, I was watching one of the Exorcist fours. Because if you don't know, there are 2 movies that are the Exorcist 4. Because the first one the studio didn't like, so they shelved it, shot a whole different movie that got a bad reaction. So they decided to release the first one that they shelved originally. So there are 2 completely different Exorcist 4 movies. And Halloween still has a worse sense of continuity than the Exorcist franchise does. So I was trying to explain the Exorcist continuity earlier, where there are 2 part 4s. And I was like, don't worry, this is still not as bad as Halloween. And there are all kinds of fun videos online where people try to do Halloween timelines and things like that. It is a fool's errand because even once you break it down into the different timelines and universes set within the Halloween world, again, 3 of the movies are just called Halloween. Once you break it down into all of that, every single movie, even the ones that are direct continuations of the one that came before it, which they aren't all, but even the ones that are huge retcons of everything you saw in the movie before it. Every single movie does that. No movie, I haven't seen Halloween Kills yet, so I can't speak for that one, but no movie directly follows the one that came before it without making gigantic changes to the story. To add to that, there are the main actresses in it, Jamie Lee Curtis and Danielle Harris, have both played more than one character. And that is also common in the movies where they will recast major characters and have major actors play multiple characters in it because it's not confusing enough from movie to movie. So I do love them to a certain degree, but if you watched all 12 back to back, you would still then have a hard time trying to immediately explain to somebody what you just watched.
Yeah.
My personal favorite is Halloween 3, in which takes place in a completely different alternate universe where the first 2 movies are movies and it has nothing to do with Michael Myers. So that's the Halloween franchise.
Yeah, some twists and turns there, and I mean, but you got to give props to John Carpenter, who was the genius behind this, and also scored
Yes.
the first one with the very um, famous theme, which most people have been dying to see. I wonder how the Atari 2600 could reproduce that theme. Well, if you've been waiting for that, this is the game for you because you are going to hear it repeatedly. Anytime the killer shows up on the screen, you get the Atari 2600 version of the Halloween theme, which in original state is awesome. Amazing. It's an amazing little piece of work. Uh, Less so in the 2600 world, but kind of what you'd expect, I guess. But you just get pelted with it. Oh, it's actually it's not quite as bad as the Ghostbusters. We talked about the Ghostbusters video game a little while back, and you get that theme thrown at you repeatedly on a constant loop. This one, you occasionally get a break if he's not on screen, so that's good, I guess. But I think in terms of the 2600 execution and music, they did a pretty nice job.
Yeah, they do recreate it pretty well. I just to touch on the theme, which Kelly already did. I'm a gigantic John Carpenter fan. He's probably my favorite director and is one of my favorite musicians. And for anybody who doesn't know, he scored all of his movies. In fact, he's mainly a musician. He stopped directing a long time ago, but has continued making albums and touring and things like that. So probably a musician first. He's done more of that than actual filmmaking in the past few decades. So I'm a huge fan on both fronts there. He has also scored the two most recent movies, the third movie that's called Halloween and Halloween Kills, and he scored the first three movies as well. So yeah, big fan of John Carpenter. The original Halloween is important because it's the first slasher movie. It was influenced by some other movies that came prior to it. Movies like Peeping Tom and Psycho. There's some elements that it took from that, but everything that we think of as a slasher movie all starts with Halloween. That's where it all comes together, and that's the exact format that every other movie follows. And it's actually kind of funny because I've seen people watch Halloween now, younger people who are like, "Oh, it's so cliche with all this," and it's like, no, that's where it started. That's where everything else got that from.
This is a cliche embryo right here.
Yeah.
This is where it comes out. Yeah,
This is patient zero.
yeah. A lot of people. I mean, time passes and you don't realize, but yeah, this. I mean, it's a landmark in that respect. And of course, commemorated well in this 2600 game. I don't know if you have any insight on this, but so Atari secured the licensing to Halloween, which was hot, at that point in time, and was also hot to try and do a movie tie-in. Whether you could in the video game industry isn't that good. Then there's ones like ET that didn't work out so well, but there was an intention to do that. So they obviously secured the licensing right because we get the music in the game. The
Yeah,
cover,
this was official.
the cover of the box is art from the Halloween movie posters from there. But then when you get the manual talks about the babysitter, not Lori, talks about the babysitter who's apparently babysitting an infinite number of children. I hope she's got a good hourly rate. And then the maniac that's escaped or the killer, but you don't get Michael Myers and you don't get any specific callbacks to the movie in the manual where it describes it. And I don't know if you have any background on that online, but I found that really strange that the manual just kind of says, it's a babysitter, it's a killer.
So I don't know 100%, but I can tell you what it most likely is. Licensing is really complicated when you're going through that sort of thing, and particularly with stuff like Halloween and what we're seeing play out in the courts right now with the Friday the 13th thing. That's been ongoing and why there's been no Friday the 13th movie for years. Halloween was created by multiple people. So different elements of it were created by different people. So when they were licensing it, I believe they were able to license the title and the theme and some of the artwork, but then not some of the characters.
Hmm.
That's a thing that happened with Friday the 13th, which is involved in a like decade long court battle now over who actually owns that. But there's two different series that I don't think people realize are completely separate things. Paramount made the Friday the 13th series, and then New Line bought the Jason character, but none of Friday the 13th. So there's a series of Jason movies that are totally separate from Friday the 13th and don't reference any of the Friday the 13th stuff other than the Jason character. And that's because they were able to buy the character, but not the movies. So Paramount owns the movies. New Line owns the Jason character. And then on top of that, the creator and the writer have been battling in court for over a decade now as to who actually owns the IP itself. So it's a big nightmarish thing. So I'm guessing that that's what this is related to. they could license certain elements of it, but not all of it. Because with Halloween, for example, the story was from a guy named Erwin Yablans. Mustafa Akkad is the guy who really drove the series, and now his son Malik Akkad does. And John Carpenter and Deborah Hill wrote the script to the first movie, which John Carpenter also directed. So they all kind of created some of the characters and some of the story. So I'm guessing that's what happened. Somebody didn't sign off on something.
That makes sense. Um, in terms of gameplay, this is Atari 2600 gameplay.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, it's pretty much kind of like Adventure. I think it's got something somewhat similar to Adventure going on. You're in a two-level house, very poor wiring in the upper level because the lights flicker on and off, which make it a little bit hard because um, you can you can dodge. We're going to call him Michael Myers for the rest of this, just for
You can
ease
dodge
of.
the killer.
But can dodge the killer fairly easily. Now, after you save about five kids and you stab him a few times. More on that in a second. You He speeds up and becomes a little more difficult, but not a difficult guy to dodge, particularly if you don't have a kid in tow. You got a kid in tow, it's a different problem. But he's slower, even in the increased difficulty, he's slower. You can maneuver around him, and that's basically back and forth. And somehow magically, the far wings of the house, left and right, are safe. And so you get the kids to there, hit your button to drop them off, and take back off and save another one. You get points for saving kids, but you also get points for as you go through. And this is where I call back to adventure. As you kind of cross through one section, you'll come across something that looks a lot to me like the Avenger sword, but it's apparently maybe some sort of knife that's black and laying on the carpet. As soon as you pick it up, it becomes significantly shorter and kind of more of a green glow stick, but it's still a knife, and you can stab the killer, and he just books out of here. I don't like being stabbed, but then as soon as
One of
you,
those guys.
I don't know, get over it. But so you get points for that as well. Not as many as saving a kid, but and so you just basically kind of cruise through and build up points, and it's a fun game to play for a while. It's the way I would describe it, and it's kind of standard Atari 26 play. So in terms of just kind of gameplay, I think it's. I mean, it's totally worth a look. In this season, absolutely, it's a great time to go back and check in with it. It's kind of fun to play. I do like the magic of running into a room and running out of a room and running back into the room to make somebody disappear. That's pretty cool. I like that. The decorator should be shot. Whoever designed this house has just horrific ideas in terms of what color palettes go together, but that's okay. You can kind of navigate up and down on the far ends in the safe zones between floors, and then in the middle you've got a couple doors that kind of just jump you levels on that floor. But it's kind of a fun play, but there's really not much evolution in the game outside of the killer being a little more difficult with certain. So did I capture it pretty well?
Yeah, I would say so. Pretty much hit everything. And again, I do think a lot of that's indicative of Atari 2600,
Yeah.
of what the games were at the time. And then, especially with licensed properties like this, there is a reason that, movie tie-in games don't have the greatest reputation. And it's because they know that the selling factor is the tie-in to the movie, not necessarily the gameplay. I don't think this is bad. It is, I would also say, if you're seeking this out, also seek out Wizard's other game, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where you play as Leatherface, chasing the kids down with a chainsaw, including the kid in the wheelchair, which for whatever reason parents had an issue with at the time.
Go figure.
Yeah, for some reason, a video game where you chainsaw kids in a wheelchair was not cool with parents at that point. So, you know,
You may want to stick with the wholesome decapitations you'll find
yeah.
in Halloween.
Yeah, as far as I know, they didn't complain about this one. They were like, whatever, chop her head off.
Take her out, babysitter. Can't even identify with you.
Filthy babysitters. But yeah, no, I think you hit everything. And this has never been like a political show, but I do think this gives us an opportunity to kind of delve into those waters. I can tell Kelly's excited already.
Hardly wait.
If we were ever going to comment on ISIS on this show, this
which I've
game,
been dying to.
I know, as Kelly has been saying off mic forever, this game finally gives us the natural progression into a conversation about ISIS. Um, so Mustafa Akkad, the guy who ran the franchise Halloween, was killed by ISIS. So that's why his son Malik runs the franchise now. So, any thoughts on ISIS, sir?
They're bad. Boo ISIS.
There you go. See, we made our one and only political statement.
Yep, there you go. And particularly irritated because of their existence, Archer had to change the name of their spy agency, which was known as ISIS for quite a while, till the other guys kind of showed up. Then it wasn't cool anymore. All right. Well, this ends our three games that we're going to cover for this year for Halloween. We're going to kind of keep doing this. We like it.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. We hope you guys like it and keep watching these so we can keep doing them.
Yep, absolutely. And thanks for watching. As Mike mentioned at the beginning, please consider subscribing, leaving us some comments. If your experience with this game, would love to hear that as well. And with that, thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. ISIS bad, Squat Cobbler good. That's a t-shirt.
Probably not.